He never planned to run that night not until a rock shattered his window, an online mob leaked his name, and the man he trusted most turned his betrayal into public sport. Miles fled into the storm, finding shelter with Cal, a guarded stranger, whose porch light cut through the dark like a promise. But trust came at a price. Whispers from the past, men who wanted him gone, and Cal's secrets boiled into a collision of desire and danger. Each touch between them carried more risk, each glance a choice neither was ready to make. Now, with enemies watching, the road out is open, and so is the door back to a man who might destroy or save him. In a world where loyalty costs everything and truth could shatter what's left, will Miles step toward safety, or into the arms he can't stop thinking about, knowing it could be the last time? The glass blew inward before I understood the chant outside was for me. Miles, come out. Phones made a sick constellation beyond my window. A rock lay among the shards like a period I hadn't agreed to. My phone buzzed. The anonymous account had posted my address, my job, a photo of me leaving a clinic with a plain brown bag. Caption, Perp boy, comments burned, M26. I thought I was careful handle, no face pics, locked calendar. Last week, I spoke for 2 minutes at a school board meeting about letting queer kids feel safe. Someone filmed it, matched my voice to an old podcast, found my socials. Now strangers argued over my life, the door thudded. We just want to talk, Miles, a voice called, sweet with poison. You lied, consequences, another ping, a video shot behind the liquor aisle at Harper's. My boyfriend, index lawed with a coworker, holding up my unlocked phone like a party favor. Told you he wouldn't notice, he said. In the freezer glass I caught my own shape walking toward them with 2 beers and an idiot grin. My throat burned, something in me tilted. I opened the drawer, took the old truck key I saved for bad nights, and stepped into rain like a rehearsal for worse. Voices rose, shoes scraped the stairs. I set my phone on the concrete step, lifted my heel, and came down. The crack was bright, almost joyful. The cheer outside felt feral. I ran. I cut through the alley, over bent chain, link, into a street more river than road. I kept my head down and counted breaths for in, 4 out. The truck waited behind the old laundromat, a boxy relic with a temperamental starter and a glove box of my father's church bulletins, paper sermons about boys like me. The engine coughed awake, headlights slid across tags sprayed on brick, go back. In the mirror, wet faces blurred, one hooded man raised his phone and smiled. My chest went tight enough to split. I pressed the pedal and slid into the avenue, wipers thudding like a metronome for panic. City fell away billboards, roofs sweating under the storm. Beyond the beltway, the world thinned into exits and sideways grass. My clothes chafed, the wheel was slick. I inventoried what still belonged to me, a duffel with 3 shirts, a childhood photo where M6 and Gap toothed, the truck key, the taste of copper, my grandmother's St. Christopher warm at my throat, red and blue flashed. Not for me a cruiser had someone else pulled over, but my body didn't care. What now? I asked the empty cab. The storm answered by hitting harder, each drop a tap on the roof, 1,000 impatient fingers. I took the next exit because the sign had no name, only a mile marker and the promise of gas. The service road uncoiled past half, built subdivisions whose model homes glowed like teeth. A billboard warned God sees another promised lawyers who fight. God and lawyers aid the other side. Ahead, a dark barn, a low house, a porch light the color of warm honey, a crooked metal sign, road close, see, to bride, gee out. Good closed was what I needed. I killed the engine. The storm softened by 1 degree. My heart banged around. I could drive on and sleep half reclined, wake to a knock that ended everything, or I could ask help from a stranger who might call the number under the post using my face for sport. I slid out and crossed the yard, mud sucking at my shoes. Up close, the house looked kept, but tired boots by the door, a dog tag, chimed a name I couldn't read. I raised my knuckles to knock them froze, as a flashlight knifed from the barn and pinned me by the ribs. Hey, a voice said older, steady, skeptical. You lost? I turned toward the beam and lifted both hands the way you do around men who work nights and carry reasons to be careful. The light lowered a fraction. The outline became a man in a hooded jacket, broad, shouldered, the kind of stillness that comes from practice, not fear. I need a place to wait out the storm, I said. An hour, then it'll go. The hood fell back. Dark hair, early lines at the eyes, a mouth that had learned restraint the hard way. 35, maybe, not a cop, not a preacher. Something in his gaze made me stand taller even as rain hunched my shoulders. "Please," I said, and heard what I sounded like. A man had run out of alibis. He looked past me toward the road like he could see the crowd ID left miles behind. Inside, he decided just for tonight. I hesitated on the threshold, one foot on wood, one in mud, knowing whichever way I leaned would become a story I couldn't edit later. Now somewhere a radio crackled from the barn, a country song about leaving and staying that made my throat ache. Then I stepped in. The heat hit me first dry, wood smoke, faint oil. I stayed just inside the door, dripping on the mat, while he locked it with 2 turns. His eyes flicked to the duffel in my hand, then back to my face like he was scanning headlines for the real story. "You got a name?" he asked. Miles, he nodded, but didn't offer his. The dog ID heard outside patted in big brindled, wearing the tag ID noticed. It sniffed at my jeans, then at my wrist, and, finding me unarmed, flopped by the stove. The man pulled a towel from a hook and tossed it to me. "Dry off, kitchen's that way." The table was old pine, scarred but clean. A mug of coffee steamed in front of an empty chair. I wrapped the towel around my shoulders, still standing. He poured another mug without asking and slid it across. His hands were rough, veins raised, the kind that have built things or broken them. "Storm's not letting up tonight," he said. "You're stuck." I almost said I'd leave anyway, pride's reflex, but the thought of the truck on flooded roads made my gut twist. "I can't sleep in the cab." He gave me a look that stripped the lie. "You'll freeze." Silence pressed between us. Rain thudded the roof like a slow drum roll. I sipped the coffee. It was strong enough to bite. "Long drive?" he asked. Long enough. His gaze held steady, not prying but not letting me off either. I could feel the mud drying on my jeans, tightening against my skin. Finally he leaned back. "Got a spare room. It's not fancy. Lock on the door if you want it." I hesitated. "Why?" he smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Because I don't like finding strangers dead on my property." I followed him down a short hall, passing framed photos, a younger version of him in uniform, arms slung around a teammate, a blurry dog leaping in a field. The spare room smelled faintly of cedar. A narrow bed, folded blanket, a single lamp. It was enough. "You can shower. Towels in the closet," he said, lingering in the doorway. "And Miles, don't go near the barn." The way he said it wasn't a joke. Before I could ask, he was gone, boots heavy on the floorboards. The shower was hot enough to sting. I scrubbed away glass dust and rain, but the day clung under my skin. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the faces outside my window, lit blue by their screens. I toweled off, pulled on my driest shirt, and lay on the bed without pulling the blanket over me. Somewhere in the house a door creaked. Floorboards groaned under deliberate weight. My breath slowed to match the rhythm, pretending to sleep. The steps paused outside my door. I could feel him there, listening, measuring. Then nothing, silence, except for the rain and my own pulse. I thought of leaving right then, slipping out into the night, but my legs wouldn't move. The storm had built walls around this place, and I was inside, whether I trusted him or not. The house changed after midnight. The rain lost its rage and settled into a steady hiss, like the world catching its breath. I didn't sleep. The ceiling fan ticked a slow metronome above me. The cedar in the closet lifted memories. I didn't want youth group lock, hymns, and whispered prayers that promised to unmake me. A soft knock, not timid, considered. "You awake?" he asked through the door. Yes. The knob turned a fraction, waiting for my permission. I sat up. Yeah. He opened it with the carefulness of someone who knows how easily things spook. Head shed the jacket, a gray T-shirt clung to his shoulders, the fabric darker where rain had found it. His forearms were nicked, the kind of small, honest cuts you get from work that does ask if you're tired. "Stove runs hot," he said. "Thought you might want dry clothes and food." I followed him to the kitchen. The dog, Hank, the tag finally yielded, thumped his tail once, and returned to pretending he didn't care. A pot simmered on the stove. Steam fogged the one window like a held breath. He set folded sweats and a soft flannel on the table. "Cal," he said, almost like an apology for not telling me earlier. "Miles," I said, though he already knew. Cal nodded, figured, the corner of his mouth ghosted toward a smile, then thought better of it. He pushed a bowl toward me. Chicken and rice, nothing fancy. The first spoonful anchored me. Salt, warmth, the kind of comfort that doesn't over-explain itself. Kel leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching me eat like he was checking a gauge. Temperature, pressure, risk. "You got people to call?" he asked. I said, then put the spoon down. "It's complicated." "Always is," he said, not unkindly. "You didn't do what they're saying you did. It wasn't a question. The certainty startled me more than doubt would have." "No," I said, "but that won't matter by morning." He studied the steam rising between us. Morning's a long way off. He poured 2 mugs, set one by my hand, and slid the other to his side of the table. The way he moved, quiet, economical, made space feel safer than the lockhead promised. I noticed a bruise shadowing the heel of my palm, glass bite still tender. He noticed too. "Let me see," he said. "It's fine." He extended his hand across the table, palm up, a small, stubborn offer. I laid my hand in his. Heat met heat. He turned my wrist gently, thumb tracing the edge of the bruise, not avoiding the hurt, not pressing hard enough to prove something. The touch felt like a new language I almost remembered. "Cold pack would help," he said, still holding me. "You're shaking." Not I started, then felt it, the tiny tremor I'd been ignoring since the window broke. Kel didn't comment. He reached for a dish towel, wrapped it around a handful of ice, and laid it across my skin. His fingers stayed a beat longer than necessary before he pulled back. "Thanks," I said, too soft. He nodded like thanks were dangerous if handled wrong. Silence settled again, filled with small household sounds: the stove's muted tick, Hank's dog, dream sigh, rain whispering at the gutters. The storm had shrunk the world to this table, these hands, the line his jaw cut in the kitchen light. "Why the barn?" I asked. "You told me not to go near it." Cal's eyes flicked toward the dark window. "Tools, expensive ones," and he stopped, searching for a version of truth that didn't invite questions. "And I've had trouble before with folks thinking an unlocked building means take what you want. People around here do that. People everywhere do that." Something tightened and relaxed in his face so quickly I couldn't name it. "Eat," he said, gentler. "You're running on fumes." I ate. He stood close enough that the warmth of him found me, even across the table. My shirt still held damp at the collar. I tugged at it. He noticed, hesitated, then picked up the flannel, shook it open, and stepped behind me. "Arms," he said. I slid my arms back into the sleeves. The fabric settled over my shoulders, soft, smelling like laundry and cedar and something that belonged to him. His hands smoothed the yoke, then paused. The light brush of his knuckles at my neck sent a clean, traitorous shiver down my spine. I didn't move, neither did he. "Fits," he said, voice lower. I turned. We were closer than we had any right to be. His eyes were the same color as wet asphalt, dangerous if you went too fast. Up close I could see the small divot in his chin, the nick on his lower lip, a scar by his brow someone else's story had left. I realized I was cataloging him the way I had cataloged what still belonged to me in the truck. "You don't know me," I said, but it came out like a confession. "I know enough," he said. He didn't step away. We stood in that stubborn inch of air that decides what happens next. The rules I'd learned don't want too loudly, don't ask too soon, don't be the one who looks first fell quiet under the sound of us breathing. My pulse tapped at my throat, his hand lifted and hovered near my cheek like he was measuring distance in millimeters instead of inches. A headlight washed across the window. Both of us flinched. The room went white, then dim again. The dog was up, ears forward, a low sound rolling in his chest like distant thunder. Cal's posture changed, open to coiled. He moved to the window, peeled the curtain an inch. His shoulders loosened. "Just a county plow," he said, but didn't sit. My mouth had gone dry. The moment had folded itself away with the speed of a magician's scarf. Cal looked at me, apology and something braver fighting it out across his face. We said at the same time. We stopped. We almost laughed. The relief was intimate in its own small way. "Stay in here tonight," he said. "Lock the door if you want. I'll take the couch. You don't have to. I know. We tidied what little there was too tidy." He handed me a spare toothbrush still in its plastic and a pair of clean socks like a man offering talismans. The tips of our fingers touched. A small spark leapt, unremarkable to the world, impossible to ignore to us. At the hall he paused. "If you wake and want water or company," he said, "the last word careful, it'll be right there." I know I said and heard too much truth in it. Back in the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the house settle around him on the couch sigh of cushions, the gentle clink as he set a mug down, a single involuntary breath that sounded like relief or restraint. The flannel held his warmth like a promise I waste owed. I lay back. The ceiling fan traced the same circle. My hand found the bruise at my wrist and felt the echo of where his thumb had been. I almost slept. Then the dog barked sharp once, footsteps in the yard, gravel shifted under someone who knew how to be quiet. Every part of me went alert without moving. The knob at my door was still, but the air around it felt charged, the way it does before a storm decides it is finished after all. I exhaled, slow, silent. The house listened with me. Somewhere in the dark, something, Somenwood. The space between my door and the couch felt like a thin line Cal was daring the world to cross. I stared at the wood, counting heartbeats, and wondered which broke first, night, luck, or the rules we hadn't spoken out loud. The morning came without sunlight. Gray pressed against the windows. The storm traded for a fog that felt heavier. Cal was already in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, frying eggs like the night hadn't ended with footsteps in the yard. "Sleep?" he asked without looking up. Enough. He set a plate in front of me. I picked at the toast, eyes darting to the window every time gravel crunched outside. Nothing moved, but the silence between noises felt deliberate. "About last night," I began. His voice was flat. "No, one should have been here." The dog barked once, short and warning. Cal's gaze cut to the front door. He wiped his hands, moved to it, and opened it without hesitation. A man stood on the porch late 40s, damp coat, eyes sharp in a way that made me want to hide behind something solid. He looked at Cal first, then at me like he'd just solved a puzzle. "So this is where you've been keeping him," the man said. His tone made it sound like contraband. Cal's jaw tightened. "You need to leave, Rick." Rick's eyes slid back to me. "You know who this is? Or did he leave that part out?" My stomach sank. Cal's shoulders went rigid. "Don't," he said. "Oh, he didn't tell you." Rick stepped forward. "Our friend here has a record for picking the wrong boys. Cost him his job 2 towns over. But I'm sure he's changed right." "Get out," Cal said, voice like gravel. I was on my feet. "Is that true?" Cal turned to me, eyes darker than last night. Not the way he's telling it, then how? My voice cracked in a way I hated. Rick laughed. "Ask him why he really leaves out here." "Leave," Cal said again, and this time it carried weight. Rick's smirk faltered, but he stepped back only when the dog growled low and deep. He lingered at the edge of the porch. "Careful, kid, storms come back." When he was gone, I closed the door harder than I meant to. "You going to tell me what that was?" "It's not your business," Cal said, heading for the hall. "Not my. You dragged me in here, told me to trust you, and now you showed up in the middle of the night with nothing but trouble on your heels. Don't pretend this is some fairy tale where we owe each other our souls." The words hit harder than they should have. "So I'm just a problem to manage." He stopped, turned, and for a second I thought he'd apologize. "I've already got more than I can manage." The silence that followed was worse than yelling. I grabbed my duffel. "Fine." My voice was ice. "You won't have to manage me anymore." He didn't stop me when I stepped outside. The fog swallowed me quick, the house already a shadow behind me. I walked until the road bent, until I couldn't hear the dog, until the only sound was my own breath. But every step carried the taste of his last look, something between warning and regret. And under all the anger, a sharper question burned. What part of Rick's story was true, and why had Cal been afraid to tell me himself? I kept walking, but the pull in my chest was already turning me back. Fog turned to drizzle, drizzle to rain, until the road blurred into gray. My boots were soaked through, the duffel strap biting into my shoulder. I told myself I was heading anywhere but back, but anywhere felt a lot like nowhere, and nowhere wasn't a plan. By the time I saw the gas station, my fingers were numb. A handful of people lingered under the awning, watching the rain. One of them, hood up, phone in hand, looked straight at me and smiled in a way that made my stomach drop. I knew that smile from the window, the night everything started. I kept moving, head down, but footsteps followed. "Hey, Miles," the voice called familiar in the worst way. Got a second. I didn't answer. A hand caught my elbow hard. I spun, shoving it off. Relax, the guy said. Just wanted to talk. Not interested. He smirked. You're trending again. Thought you might want to know what they're saying now. The phone lit up in his palm comments, screenshots, my face next to words I hadn't said. I walked, he followed for half a block before peeling away, but the damage was done. Every parked car felt like an eye. Every window, a lens. By the time I reached the turnoff to Cal's Road, my pulse was hammering. I told myself I was only going back for the truck, for my stuff, but the sight of the porch light cut through more than just the fog. Cal opened the door before I knocked. His eyes swept over Mewett, shivering, breathing too fast. Get in. I inside, Miles, now. The dog padded over as I stepped in, circling me like he wastes, unsure whether to greet or guard. Cal shut the door, locked it, and went straight for a towel. What happened? Ran into someone who knows too much. His jaw worked. Describe him. I did. His face darkened. Yeah, that's Devin. He's worse than Rick. I took the towel but didn't dry off right away. You've got a lot of enemies. Not enemies, Cal said, meeting my eyes. Just people who think my life is theirs to ruin. Sound familiar. The words stuck. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell rain in his shirt. You're freezing, he said. Sit. I sat. He knelt in front of me, unlacing my boots without asking. His fingers brushed my ankle. The heat of his hand seeped in through soaked denim. You didn't have to come back, he said quietly. Yeah, I murmured. I did. His eyes held mine for a beat too long. Then he stood, got a blanket, and draped it over my shoulders, tucking it in at the collar like head, done it 100 times for someone else. We didn't talk much after that. He made tea. I held the mug, letting the heat bite at my palms, but under the quiet, tension curled tighter, kind you can't tell apart from something you want. A knock shattered it, hard, urgent. Cal froze, mug halfway to his lips. The dog growled low. Stay here, he said. Through the curtain, I caught a flash of movemento figures, one holding something metallic. Cal's hand went to the back of the counter, where a flashlight and a length of pipe leaned. He opened the door just enough to block the view inside. What do you want? His voice was calm steel. We know he's here, a voice answered. You can give him to us or we can come in. Cal didn't move. Not tonight. The pause that followed was sharp enough to cut. Then footsteps retreated, gravel crunching. The dog stayed by the door until the last sound faded. Cal shut it, locked it, and turned to me. Pack your things. If they come back, I don't want you here. Something in me twisted. And where am I supposed to go? He looked away, jaw tight. Anywhere that isn't tied to me. It felt like a push and a pull at the same time. Get out, but stay safe. I wanted to argue, to ask why he cared enough to warn me, but not enough to keep me. But all I said was, I'm not leaving tonight. Our eyes met. No one blinked. The air between us was thick with everything we didn't have time to say. And somewhere outside, in the fog, I swore I heard footsteps again. I didn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt like a test of whether Cal would still be there if I called his name. The rain had stopped, but the air was heavy, swollen with the promise of another storm. When dawn broke, Cal was already moving around the kitchen. He slid a mug toward me without looking up. Well, leave after breakfast, he said. I know a place where you can stay, safer than here. The way he said it, flat, logistical, made something in my chest ache. You mean where it'll be out of your way? His jaw flexed. I mean where they can't find you. Who? Rick, Devin, whoever else you've pissed off. His eyes snapped to mine. You think this is a game? No, I said. I think you're hiding things, and am the idiot who walked into the middle of it. He leaned on the counter, the space between us shrinking. You don't know what I've done to keep you safe, that's the point. I don't know anything, Cal, except every time I ask you slam a door in my face. He straightened, the temperature in the room dropping. You want to know? Fine. Rick was my partner. Devin was his friend. When I found out they were running a little side hustle with kids barely 18, I reported them. Guess who the department believed? My stomach turned, so they came after you. They burned me down to the studs, he said. And now they see you here, and they've got a new target. I swallowed, the coffee suddenly bitter. Why didn't you tell me last night? Because I thought you'd run. Maybe I should. His hand slammed the counter hard enough to rattle the mugs. Go ahead. See how far you get before they drag your name through the mud again. The air between us was raw, jagged. I stood, heat rising in my face. You don't get to use my fear to keep me here. His voice dropped, dangerous in its quiet. "And you don't get to pretend you came back for your truck." I froze. He took a step closer, the scent of rain and cedar hitting me before his shadow did. "You came back because you wanted to." The space between us thinned to a breath. His hand lifted, fingers grazing the edge of my jaw like he wastes, and sure if he was holding me there or letting me go. My pulse thudded in my ears. I admitted. For a moment it felt like the fault line might close instead of split. Then the knock came sharp, deliberate. We both turned. Through the curtain a shape loomed, too still to be friendly. Kel reached for the pipe again, but the voice outside was different this time. "Miles, we just want to talk." I went cold. Kel's eyes locked on mine. "Don't open that door." Another knock. Slower. "We know what he told you," the voice said. "And it's not the truth." Cal's grip tightened on the pipe. "Stay back," he ordered, but something in me wanted answers he wouldn't give. My hand hovered over the lock, the heat from his stare on my skin. One twist, and I'd know if they were lying or if he was. The house felt too small for both of our silences. My fingers curled around the knob, and then I had to choose. I didn't open the door, not then. Cal's voice low, urgent, cut through the static in my head. "Step away, Miles." I did, but only far enough that the air between us stayed tight. Outside the voice laughed once, dry as gravel. Footsteps retreated. A car door shut. Tires hissed over wet gravel, growing smaller until they were near far enough to wait where we couldn't see. Cal exhaled, setting the pipe against the wall. "They'll be back." "I know," I said. We didn't talk much after that. I packed my things in silence. He stood by the window, watching the road. When I brushed past him to grab my jacket, our arms touched warm through the fabric, stubbornly human. Neither of us moved. "You still leaving?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. The dog nosed my duffel like he could smell the decision. An hour later, I was walking down the long gravel drive, St. Christopher pendant in my palm. The sky was a hard, pale blue, the kind that feels like it could crack if you pushed too hard. Kel's truck was parked by the barn, hood up, his head bent under it. He didn't wave. I didn't stop. At the bend in the road, I glanced back. He was leaning against the truck now, watching, hands in his pockets. 100 yards and I could still feel his eyes. The bus stop was nothing but a splintered bench and a sign halves, wallowed by weeds. I sat, duffel at my feet, rain pooling in the dips of the road. In my pocket, my phone. "You prepaid, just once." And no number. I didn't answer. Minutes passed. The sound of an engine drifted up the road. For a heartbeat, I thought it was the bus. Then I saw the truck-high's truck round the curve slow. Cal didn't get out. He just sat there, engine idling, driver's window down, like the next move was mine. We stared across the wet space between us. Two people balanced on the thin line between leaving and staying. I could stand, walk to him, throw the duffel in the bed, and pretend the last 24 hours were a storm that had already passed. Or I could get on the bus and let him shrink into the distance until he was nothing but a story someone else told. The sound of tires on wet gravel grew louder, behind me this time. Headlights flared in the reflection of the puddles, drawing closer. Another car, another choice. Cal's gaze didn't leave mine. The bus never came.